Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 473 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asked to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. It's no denying how important a quarterback is to a football team. When you look at the MVPs, most of the time it goes to the quarterback because it's been proven that if you do not have a quarterback, you have no shot in the league. You have no shot in any sense of the word, maybe high school, but you have no shot if you don't have a quarterback. So I know the importance. We know the metrics are clear. The importance of a quarterback to a football team. But there are a lot of instances where the quarterback might not be the best player on the field. That doesn't mean that the importance of a quarterback is any less important, but it just means that they necessarily aren't the best player. And there are also instances where it takes more than a quarterback to get over that hump. And I believe we're seeing that with this Philadelphia Eagles team and the importance of Saquon Barkley. Don't worry. Shortly after this segment, I'm going to talk about the Giants. But when you look at this Eagles team, there's a reason why there's a feeling of Super Bowl and bust. Super Bowl or bust. That's because of the play of Saquon Barkley. You see, when you look at Saquon Barkley and you look at the importance that he has on this Eagles team, look no further than what we saw on Sunday Night Football when the Eagles beat the Rams 37-20. Now, you can say, well, the Eagles are just a better team and the Eagles have a better defense, and the Rams, while they are good offensively with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, the difference in the game was Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley rushing for 255 yards with 2 touchdowns. We're going to look in history, and there are a few wide running backs that buck the system. And what I mean by that is the stigma. I'm not even going to say stigma because stigma means it may or may not be true. There is evidence that when you look at the wear and tear on a on a running back, a running back's best years are always early 24 to 26, 27. Because running backs take almost the most beatings as far as the skill position, their football life expectancy is shorter than a wide receiver, shorter than a quarterback. They have the shortest life expectancy when we talk about the skill positions on the offensive side of the ball. That's one of the biggest reasons, if you look at what happened this offseason, one of the biggest reasons why the Tennessee Titans were okay to a certain extent with letting go of Derrick Henry, and why, while obviously hindsight is 2020, and when we look at it now, it was stupid of them not to, but why the Dallas Cowboys felt like they were okay not getting Derrick Henry. Again, I know in hindsight it was dumb, but you look at the mileage that's on Derrick Henry, and you're like, yeah, I understand why you don't want to give him the money that you give him. But we're going to look at history, and we're going to there was a few wide receiver. What in God's name is happening? I'm sorry, guys. We're going to look at history, and there are a few running backs that buck the system. I think Christian McCaffrey is one of them. Obviously, Derrick Henry is one of them. Adrian Peterson is one of them. And now we're looking at Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, statistically, when this season is over, could have the best season a running back has ever had. Saquon Barkley's greatness has let's say, shielded our eyes to some of the struggles, even though I will say that I think in this, 7-game win streak that the Eagles are on, Jalen Hurts has been much better. But you're seeing the luxury of having a dominant running back. It makes your offense that much better. It makes you're not as predictable. And it just allows you to scheme things, and it gives you the ultimate safety blanket. Again, I'm not taking away from the importance of a quarterback. But when you look at this Eagles team, the reason why a lot of people, I'll just speak for myself. The reason why I think they are a Super Bowl caliber team, while in some parts is because of Jalen Hurts, is because of Antonio or AJ Brown, is because of Devontae Smith. In large part, it's because of the play of Saquon Barkley. I think that we're going to talk about Derrick Henry in a short minute, but I think that there are instances where I wouldn't be upset, or I don't think that there would be mass hysteria if a non-quarterback got the MVP. I think right now I understand that Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are number one. Like I said, I understand the importance of a quarterback. But this is one of those seasons where if you wanted to give it to a non-quarterback, this would be one of those seasons. If Tyreek Hill didn't get hurt last year, I think that would have been a season where you could have given the MVP to a non-quarterback. Obviously, Lamar Jackson did win his second one, but Tyreek Hill was on such a historic pace. I think if he would have hit those historic marks, over 2,000 yards as a wide receiver, I would have given him the MVP, but obviously injuries fell short. Not only is Saquon Barkley on pace to rush for over 2,000 yards, the Eagles, as we're currently speaking, is 9-2. He is the best player on the Eagles, and if he keeps up this pace, he will break Eric Dickerson's rushing record. I'm not saying that Saquon Barkley is the best player in football. I'm not saying that Saquon Barkley is even the best running back. Obviously, that's debatable between him and Derrick Henry this year. But what I am saying is I don't think that there's any doubt that if you look at the new acquisitions that happen yearly and their impact to a team, to this point, I don't think that there's anybody close when we talk about their importance to a team to then Saquon Barkley is to this Eagles team. The Rams aren't the best defense. And that's not me saying that's not an asterisk to 255 rushing yards. That's me saying that while their defense isn't the best, this is still the NFL. And you're not going to see too many people against any defense. You can have the worst. I don't know statistically right now who the worst rushing defense is, but I'm almost sure they haven't given up 255 rushing yards to one player. So what we're seeing out of Saquon Barkley is extremely rare. And I think that we're in that part of the year where teams are starting to separate themselves. Actually, I'm not going to say starting. Teams have separated themselves. The teams that get the most conversation are the teams that haven't yet separated themselves or keep double dutching between a good, Super Bowl caliber team or a team that's just okay. When we talk about this Eagles team, they have separated themselves in the NFC. And they're honestly on pace, in my opinion, to separate themselves from the league, them and the Lions. I think next week, and obviously we'll talk about it next episode a little bit more when I do my Week 13 predictions, but we possibly could see a Super Bowl preview with this Eagles and Ravens game. But for right now, Saquon Barkley is, in my opinion, by far the best player on this Eagles team. And I understand how important wide receivers are. I understand how important quarterbacks are. Obviously, quarterback being the most important position on a football team. But there's no denying how good Saquon Barkley is and how important Saquon Barkley is. And we talk about Heisman moments, and what moments do you have that propels you over somebody else when we talk about the Heisman? Saquon Barkley, if you want to talk about your quote-unquote MVP moment, he's had two of them at this point. The backwards hurdle and rushing for 255 yards. And if he continues this, he will have a third by season's end, and that is rushing for over 2,000 yards and possibly breaking Eric Dickerson's rushing record. I'm not saying that that's what it's going to take to leap over someone like a Josh Allen or someone like a Lamar Jackson. But this is why you go get a player like Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley now makes the Eagles, at least this offense, when they're rolling, damn near unstoppable. The same feeling to a certain extent that I feel when I watch the Detroit Lions play and they're firing on all cylinders. Hell, sometimes the same feeling I have when I watch the Ravens play and they're actually leaning on what makes them great is the feeling that I get with this Eagles team when they're rolling. Again, the Rams is a good team. They're not the greatest team, but they're a good team. They're a good offense. The Rams were playing for something. They're still playing for their playoff hopes. And the Eagles just dismantled them. A lot of it was because of Saquon Barkley. So shouts out to the Eagles for beating the Rams 37-20. And shouts out to Saquon Barkley for reminding the league why he is a generational player. Because that's what he was touted to be. That's what he was at Penn State. And that sort of leads us into the next game that I have to address. Usually a team that loses 30-7 does not get the second slot of a TV show, of a podcast. That usually doesn't happen. I'm just letting you know now. So when people's like, why the hell is he talking about the Buccaneers and Giants in the first 20 minutes of the episode? I know. But forever, for the history of this Giants team and this Eagles team, they're always going to be connected. Not just because they're in the same division, but because of Saquon Barkley. Football is an incredibly difficult sport. That's That's not breaking news. That shouldn't be breaking news to anybody. Football is a sport where you have to be all in or all out because of the life-altering potential injuries you could get on any given play. You have to be all in or all out. And that's not just talking about players, it's organizations, it's coaches, owners. You can tell when a team is going all in, and you can tell when a team has packed it up. As shocking as it is, you look at teams like the Patriots, we'll talk about their game a little later. It doesn't feel like they're not good, but it doesn't feel like they've packed it up. Hell, the Jaguars, to a certain extent, they don't even feel like they've packed it up. And they're one of the, if not the worst team in football. In my opinion, you can argue the Jaguars. I wouldn't be upset, and I wouldn't even say you're wrong. But in my opinion, there's one team that feels like they've packed it up, and that is the New York Giants. I knew that the Buccaneers were better than the Giants. We all should have known that the Buccaneers were better than the Giants. We also know that the Giants have gone through some of the most turmoil this entire year. The issue, however, is all of it is self-inflicted. All of it. A lot of I read you guys' comments, so I know what you guys are saying about me and about my takes. I get it. And a lot of you guys I put a video out, I think last episode or 2 episodes ago. I talked about the Cincinnati Bengals being a poverty franchise. And a lot of people were, check this guy out. He's new to the, pretty much telling me I should have been known this, or y'all knew this before me, or I'm wrong. It's just blah, 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 blah. Cool. But there are different avenues to get to the same place. And while I have more faith in someone like the Cincinnati Bengals, and I have more faith because they have a Joe Burrow, they have a Jamar Chase at this moment, they have a T. Higgins. I have more faith that they're able to find their way out of poverty because they have cornerstone pieces. And they haven't been dumb enough, outside of maybe T. Higgins, they haven't been dumb enough as an organization to not just take those pieces for granted, but they haven't been dumb enough to let them go. I started this episode with saying I understand the importance of a quarterback to a team. And I'm not going to stay on this for long because I've talked about this ad nauseum. But I understand the importance a quarterback has to a team. And I understand why you would prioritize signing someone like a Daniel Jones. I understand. When it happened, I said I understood, and I even understand to this day. Me understanding doesn't ultimately mean it was right, but I understand it. You want to prioritize your quarterback, especially after he has his best statistical season. But what I don't understand, and what you're starting to see is, and I said this, again, I understand that, look, you ain't got to listen to me. I know I'm not on ESPN. I know I'm not on CBS Sports. I know I'm not on TNT. I know I'm not on Fox Sports, but I've watched enough sports in my life that I think I can conjure up a pretty solid opinion about something and it not be off base. Yes, you want to prioritize, or not even prioritize. Let's throw that word out. You want to make sure your quarterback is okay, but you don't do that at the behest of your best player. You don't prioritize somebody that, in all intents and purposes, even after his best year, a lot of people knew and thought he's more replaceable than your best player. As we sit here today, how many Saquon Barkleys are we seeing walking around the NFL? Then how many in conjunction to that, how many Daniel Joneses are we seeing walking around the NFL? In fact, we're not seeing a lot of them because Daniel Jones is technically not even on a team right now. And I think the worst part about this whole situation is it's not the fact that you let Saquon Barkley go and he goes to your divisional rival and is having an MVP caliber season. It's not even the fact that you've made the decision to release Daniel Jones midway through the season. I think the worst part about this is you can't even sell your team that you're all in. You can't sell your team on the fact that you are doing everything in your power, talking about the front office. You're doing everything in your power to ensure that your team is in the best position to win. Because if you would have done that, even if you still would have cut Daniel Jones, why not start Drew Lock, who, in all intents and purposes, is clearly better than Tommy DeVito right now? Look, the Giants, they're not a good team. I know this. They know this. But you still have great players. You still have Malik Neighbors. You still have Dexter Lawrence. You still have Brian Burns, who you got this offseason, might I add. It may seem like I'm talking in a bunch of directions when I'm talking about this Giants team. And you're absolutely right, because there is a bunch of directions you can go. The way that I'm talking about this Giants team is the way that they're perceived. They just do anything, bro. They're not a good franchise. They are the definition of a poverty franchise. Look, I'm not taking away from the history, man. I know how good they've been, especially, hell, I've seen them win 2 Super Bowls before I've seen my team win 1. Now, yes, my team does have 3 Super Bowls. That is the Washington Commanders. But the last time they won a Super Bowl was 1991. I was born in 1994, so obviously I haven't seen it. I've seen more recent success with this Giants team than I've seen with my team. So I'm not taking away from the history. But like I said, there are multiple ways to get to the same destination. Not every road is the same. And a lot of it has been self-inflicted, but all of those decisions have gotten the Giants to a dysfunctional poverty franchise. And it's crazy when you see Xavier McKinney, when you see Saquon Barkley, when you see all these former Giants still balling out, just not on the Giants. And you see the Giants as a team right now losing to the Buccaneers, And don't get me wrong, the Buccaneers are a really good team. But losing 30-7, you should not even be on the field. Only allowing your best or only giving your best offensive player in Malik Neighbors no targets in the first half of the game. And now you see all the noise that's coming out of this team. That's a function. This is the bowl that they have. This is the plate that the Giants have made. And the reason why, and lastly, before we move on, the reason why the Giants, a team that is 2-9 right now, that lost to the Buccaneers 30-7, that allowed Baker Mayfield to throw for 294 yards and a rushing touchdown. The reason why this team found its way to the second slot of this episode is because when you look at the recent decision making that the Giants have made, they have done nothing but make teams around them much, much better and make them much worse. And you're wondering why. You're hearing people and you wonder why you have, players like Malik Neighbors and Brian Burns coming out to the media voicing their frustration with this team. That only is able to happen because I'll say it like this. Because Brian Burns is a vet in this league. I'll say it like this. There is not a vet. There's nobody on that team that can go to Brian Burns and can go to Malik Neighbors and say, hey, bro, you got to chill out. I understand how you feel. I'm not negating how you feel. I'm not minimizing how you feel. But you just can't say that to the media. You can't come off like that to the media. There's not one person in that team that can say that. Not one. Not because there isn't vets, not because that they're not good. You can't say that because the team as a whole, the front office, has shown you that they have quit on this team. Coming out and saying that you don't want you want to bench Daniel Jones, not because he's been bad, but because you don't want to risk him getting hurt, so you have to pay him. When Daniel Jones is the best quarterback on this roster, not saying he's the greatest ever, not saying he's great, but you not wanting to pay Daniel Jones, it's like, what? And on top of that, not starting Drew Lock was it. If you're gonna go that route, right, and not starting the better quarterback, yeah. Well, congratulations to the Bucs for beating the Giants 30-7, and if you want the definition of a poverty franchise and how decision making can get you to where you are, look no further than the New York Giants and where they currently are, and how they've currently looked. That is bad. But shouts out to the Bucs. Let's move forward. I talked about this a little bit last episode. I wanted to see what the Chargers look like against the Ravens. The Ravens is a team that a lot of people feel when they're playing to their best is a Super Bowl caliber team. fact, a lot of people, including myself, have lamented that the times that the Ravens, at least from the AFC Championship to now, almost every time that they've lost, it's because that they have gone against what makes them a great team. And the Ravens beating the Chargers 30-23 on Monday Night Football told me more about the Chargers than it did the Ravens. The Ravens historically are on a pace to match and even in a lot of areas be better than the greatest show on turf. That offense. The Ravens have a historic offense right now. When they utilize Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman and Isaiah Likely and Justice Hill, they are statistically and historically one of the greatest offenses we've ever seen. I know I talk about how great the Lions are, and rightfully so. And it's crazy when you watch the Lions and you watch the Ravens, it just looks different as far as the Lions offense looks 10 times better. And when an eye test, when they're rolling on all cylinders, they look 10 times better than the Ravens. But the Ravens, I think they're historically averaging like 7 yards a play. That is, do you know how tough that is in NFL? So that's not me, saying that the Lions are 10 times better. That's just me saying it looks different. While you can kind of see the dominance from the Lions, you can kind of see it from the Ravens as well, but it just looks different. But that doesn't negate the fact that the Ravens are on a historic pace offensively. And like I said last episode, I am very interested in, and I want to see what the Chargers look like against the Ravens. Because I've had hesitation about these Chargers. Going into the game, they were 7-3. And on paper, they look like one of the best teams in football. And they look like one of those teams that could make some noise in the postseason. And while I'm not saying that I'm completely off of that stance now that they've lost to the Ravens, I think that the picture is more clear with this Chargers team. Jim Harbaugh is one of the best coaches that we have in football. Everywhere Jim Harbaugh goes, whether we talk about Stanford, whether we talk about the 49ers, whether we talk about Michigan, and now we're talking about the Chargers, his imprint is undeniable. There's no way that you can see. Jim Harbaugh brings such a unique feel, a unique formula to a team that almost always, not almost, let's just back up, that always resorts in winning. No, he's never won a Super Bowl, but he has been to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. He won a national championship with Michigan. He completely turned around Stanford's history, Stanford. And now when you look, the Chargers feel much different. They look like a better team. Jim Harbaugh brings such an infectious aura to a team. And usually it results in a lot of wins. But I needed to see it. I know you're probably asking, Jalen, what do you mean? You just said going into this game they were 7-3. Correct. But if you look at the teams that they have beat compared to the teams that they've lost to, I think they're 1-4 now against teams that are above 500 or that are in the playoffs right now. And they're just beating bottom feeding or teams that are not in the playoff. I think their best win against a team that wasn't in the play or that's currently not in the playoffs right now is the Cincinnati Bengals. And if you look, they were dominating that game the first half. In the second half, the Cincinnati Bengals dominated the game. I think, like I said, the picture is now more clear when I look at this Chargers team. I think that they're a really good team. I think that they're a team that is going to be in the playoffs. I think that they're a team that could even win a wild card game. But I don't think that this team is a Super Bowl caliber team. I honestly wouldn't be shocked if this team even lost in the wild card. Justin Herbert has been good. J.K. Dobbins, even though he did get hurt against the Ravens, he's been good. The defense has been good. But the defense, that's another thing. We always talk about the Ravens defense, and the Ravens defense has been much better. In the last, let's say 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, the Ravens have been better. Now, they did go down 10-0 against the Chargers, and it looked like the same old Ravens defense. But the Ravens defense has gotten much better. And one thing that the Ravens did on Monday Night Football that they have not been able to do all season is limit their penalties. While they still were penalized, especially the last drive of the game, they were able to reduce the number of back-breaking penalties. And what I mean by that is Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry would have a 20, 25-yard play that'll get axed by a penalty. They kept having that against the Steelers. Maybe not Derrick Henry, but Lamar Jackson. And they were able to reduce that against the Chargers. But I look at this Chargers team, man, and it's like Quentin Johnson still struggles with drops. He had 3 critical drops on Monday. Some of those, if he would have caught some of those, we could be talking about this game much differently. He had 3 critical drops, and that's an issue. Quentin Johnston, he is the prototypical build of a great wide receiver. I think 6'4", he's fast, long arms. Yet and still, their best, and I think that he's created much separation at this point. Their best wide receiver is a rookie from Georgia, Ladd McConkey. Like, it's not even close anymore. And Ladd McConkey's like 5'10". Not ideal. Now, J.K. Dobbins is hurt. I hope it's not serious, but he couldn't finish out the game. Maybe if he finished out the game, it would look differently. But he didn't. What I'm just saying is there's too many factors that prove that they're not as good as their record. I know that the saying is you're only as good as your record. I get that. And to a certain extent, you're absolutely right. But there's multiple ways to get to that record. Yes, you play who you play. You know, you play who's on the schedule. But what Monday night showed me, because that was a question that I had. What it proved is, while the Chargers are a good team, I don't think they're in that elite class yet. Because every team that they are 1-4 against teams that are above 5 or that are in the playoff picture right now. 1-4, meaning they're 6-0 against teams that are below 500 or not in the playoffs. Well, The issue about that stat is when you go to the playoffs, you're playing against nothing but playoff teams. So I don't need to elaborate much on the Ravens. This is the issue, not issue. This is what we've been talking about. If the Ravens play their game, Derrick Henry had 24 carries for 140 yards. When they play to the best of their ability, when Lamar Jackson's rolling, because it did take a minute. Again, they were down 10-0. When Lamar Jackson and this offense gets rolling, it's almost unstoppable. The only issue that I've had with them is, which now coming out of this game is a positive, is, their defense has been god-awful. That was the stat. The stat was when they say that numbers don't lie and stuff. The Ravens have the best rushing, or one of the best rushing defenses in football, but have the worst passing defense. Well, you're going to have the worst running or the best running defense, because teams aren't going to run on you like that, because they know that they're going to get most of their yards from the pass. So you don't have to stop the run that much because you're not getting run on. But these last few weeks, the defense, I'll just say last 2 weeks, the defense have played pretty well. Again, I am interested to see, and I'll give my predictions next episode, but I'm interested to see this. I think that could be a Super Bowl preview, Ravens against the Eagles. But the Chargers, they are a good team, but I don't think they're a great team. And I don't think that they're while they are 7-4, I don't think they're a team that is going to make much noise in the playoffs, especially when the pieces that you should have haven't really matriculated into their potential, But shouts out to the Ravens for beating the Chargers 30-23. Oh my gosh. Okay. That's just, I wrestle with a bunch of emotions when I talk about this Cowboys-Commanders game. First of all, the Cowboys beat the Commanders 34-26. I wrestle with a lot of thoughts and emotions because for anyone that saw the game and saw how Commanders were struggling all game. Cowboys were struggling all game. Commanders took the lead. Cowboys took the lead back. Turpin, who was one of the fastest players in the league, has a kickoff return after fumbling a punt. Kickoff return for a touchdown. The game is all but over. Washington then throws Jaden Daniels throws a bomb to Terry McLaurin. Scores. Throws an 80-yard bomb, or throws a pass and it goes 80 yards, to Terry McLaurin. Touchdown. The score is 27-26. And the kicker misses a point. That was probably the worst special teams as far as kicking goes I've ever seen from two teams. The kicking in that game was atrocious. But the emotion, it was low, then it just skyrocketed to high, then it plummeted back to low in a span of, I'll say, a minute and a half to 2 minutes. So I say that I wrestle with a lot of emotions because there are positives you can take out of this game. There are definitely negatives. You lost to a team in the Cowboys that has not only struggled mightily, but you lost to a Cowboys team that gave up 36 plus points in the last, 5 games? You lost to a Cowboys team that is starting Cooper Rush. You lost to a Cowboys team that had 86 rushing yards from just if you make the kick, right? If he makes the kick and he ties it up at 27, I don't think you then don't have an onside kick. The onside kick goes for a touchdown. You win the game. You possibly could win the game because you go into overtime. On top of that, I said it, man. This is, and I said it before, bro. This is the issue that I have. Yo, history tells you all you need to know. There is nothing that has happened now that hasn't happened before. Everywhere, and I mean everywhere, Cliff Kingsbury goes, he has a solid first half of the season and a terrible second half. Teams catch up to Cliff Kingsbury. And it should be to no surprise that in the last 3 to 4 weeks, the offense has looked bad. If Terry McLaurin would have never had, I think it was 81 yards. If he did not have that 81-yard reception touchdown, Jaden Daniels would not have thrown for over 200 yards. Think about that. A player that had one of the best starts in NFL history for a rookie at the quarterback position was not about to throw for 200 yards against a bad defense. Yes, I'm a little bit emotional because it was the Cowboys. And obviously, I'm a Commanders fan. You don't want to lose. You never want to lose to the Cowboys. But there are glaring red flags. You know what I'm hearing? One thing I'm hearing is, well, Jalen, bro, the Commanders are much better than they should have been. Nobody thought that they would be as good as they are. You didn't even think they were going to be as good as they are. And that may be true. But the one thing that I always say is your opinions, your viewpoints can change with new data. And just from week 1 to week 9, this team was one of the best teams in football. So while I may have had my thoughts and opinions going into the season, they prove that they can be great. Jaden Daniels proved that he can be great. On top of that, Cliff Kingsbury has proven that teams catch up to his offenses halfway through the season. So I should have known after week 9 it was going to go downhill. Especially in his press conference when he said, well, I don't know the data that you have with that. I think my teams have been great. Yeah, we lost. The Commanders lost to the Cowboys 34-26. The Cowboys scored 24 points in the fourth quarter, and the Commanders scored 17. I think outside of everything that I just said, outside of losing to the Cowboys, outside of what we saw from week 1 to week 9 compared to what we saw now, or these last 2-3 weeks. I think the part that hurts the most is me being right. Especially, but shit, I don't, man. I know this is an emotional feeling because I want the Commanders to be good, and they still could win the playoff. I mean, they didn't win the playoffs. They still could make the playoffs. But I thought that I was looking at possibly one more loss on the season. Like, you should beat the Commander. I mean, you should beat the Cowboys at home. Especially this Cowboys team that damn near checked out. Man. I was saying that if you beat the... it doesn't matter no more. The Cowboys beat the Commanders 34-26. I talk about, we see this all the time. I just said it, but it's true. History tells you all that you need to know about the present. Well, yes, there are things that happen in the present that obviously are historical and we may never see again. Cool. But we're seeing history. Or no, what I'm saying is history tells you all that you need to know. And when you're a team that continues to make postseason runs, that usually means that you're playing more games than most teams, especially when you make deep playoff runs. And eventually, that is going to catch up with you. If you don't believe me, look at the Golden State Warriors. Well, yes, they're good this year, but you go to finals after finals after finals after finals. Your body gets worn down. It's tired. You're playing much more games than other teams. So your body's going to get worn down to the point where they're really good now, even though they did lose their last 2 games. But I don't know if they're an NBA title contender. I've said it before, man. Now, usually when I say it, I was talking about the Baltimore Ravens, more specifically last year in the AFC Championship. But I said, once your Super Bowl window is not going to be open forever. There's going to be a point where it closes. And you look at this 49ers team, I think it is closed. The Packers beat the 49ers 38-10. The Packers, mind you, this wasn't a mistake-free Packers game. Jordan Love still threw some head-scratching balls that should have been intercepted but wasn't. Yes, Josh Jacobs did carry for 26 yards, 26 carries, 106 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think all 3 of those touchdowns were within the 10-yard line. But this is more about the 49ers. Yes, Brock Purdy didn't play. Yes, Brandon Ayuk is out for the season. But this is what happens in sports, bro, especially football. When you play more games, there's more wear and tear on the body. And as a football player, you don't get healthier as the season goes by. You don't get healthier as the years go, unless you have to sit down due to injury. And it's no coincidence that not only is this 49ers team now 5-6, but most of their team is dealing with injury. And you're looking, Deebo Samuels even came out and said this is one of the most frustrating years he's ever had. He's been awful. I think he's averaging like a drop a game at this point. And when you look at this game, this is one of those games where you're supposed to look at the opponent and be like, okay, I have to look at you eye to eye. This is one of those opponents where you give your best. I understand the injuries or whatever, but you give your best because this is an opponent that you could see in the playoffs. And you only scored 10 points. Again, I know people are going to point to Brock Purdy not being there and all the injuries, but that even amplifies my point. This has been the season from hell for the 49ers. And it's not, there's still, 5-6 weeks left? Once that Super Bowl window closes, it closes. I'm not saying it closes forever, but it closes. And I think unless they make something drastic happen, which I don't think they will this year, I think the Super Bowl window is closed for the 49ers. Shit, they're 5-6. They may not even make the playoffs. A team that is perennial a conference championship and Super Bowl appearance team may not even make the playoffs. And you lost to a Packers team that has issues of their own. Christian Watson dropping passes but even with all that, they looked like the 49ers looked like they didn't deserve to be on the field with the Packers. Now, the Packers is a good team. Don't get me wrong. The Packers are a good team. But I don't know if they're 28 points better than the 49ers is all I'm saying. But then again, maybe they are. Because that's just the season the 49ers have had. So shouts out to the Green Bay Packers for beating the 49ers 38-10. A win is a win. That is true. A win is a win. And obviously, you want to have a win over a loss. A win is a win. And the Chiefs beat the Panthers 30-27. Yes, a win is a win. But this is yet another game where the Chiefs could have lost. I know coulda, woulda, shoulda, but they could have lost. This was by far Bryce Young's best game, at least this year, as a quarterback. Chuba Hubbard played well. It was a great game from the Panthers. It's just you played the Chiefs. But the Chiefs continue to have these type of games where they probably should have lost, but they didn't. Or, Bryce Young outplayed Patrick Mahomes. I know that from the information that we've got, how blasphemous that sounds, but it's true. At some point, this may just be who the Chiefs are this year. I'm not saying that the championship window is closed. I will not say, especially for no 10-1 team. Shit, they can go on and win the Super Bowl. They just might. But what I am saying is, it's no surprise that the two teams that have dealt with a lot of injury, I'm not going to say the most, but have dealt with a lot of injury this year, has been the Chiefs and the 49ers, the two teams that continuously go to either the conference championship and or the Super Bowl. And it's no coincidence that the teams that have, I'll say it like this. This Chiefs team look mightily different if Patrick Mahomes was not the quarterback. And obviously, these are all hypotheticals, but it's true. You're struggling against every single team. Every single team. I don't know. In fact, give me a second. I want to see something. I want to see the last team that the Chiefs have just destroyed. If you want to say destroyed, the team that they beat the worst was the Saints. And they beat them 26-13. But I think that was the same game that Derek Carr got hurt. They also beat the 49ers by 10. They haven't. Yeah, man. They haven't beat anyone convincingly, honestly, that they could see moving forward. And in all intents and purposes, they were outplayed by the Panthers. It's just they're a better team. And you gave Patrick Mahomes more time at the end of the game, which obviously got them in field goal range. So, but this is one of those games where you should have gotten it over with quickly, and you didn't. Not just you didn't, it seems like you can't. So, shouts out to the Chiefs, though, for beating the Panthers 30-27. Again, a win is a win at the end of the day. Look, man, they keep winning. Just like the Chiefs, to a certain extent, they keep winning. The Vikings beat the Bears 30-27. They keep winning. Caleb Williams had a great game, though, sort of 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. But maybe it's just the Bears. They just find ways, which is why I understand the conversation surrounding Matt Eberflus, especially with the quote-unquote reemergence of Caleb Williams. I don't think that this season should, or the way that this season ends, should save his job. I think that they just need to clean house as far as getting Matt Eberflus and his coaching staff out of there. But they got another kicks blocked back-to-back weeks. I don't know how many times that's happened in NFL history. And it looks like their defense is starting to slow down. I mean, Aaron Jones carried for 106 yards. Jordan Addison had 162 yards and a touchdown. I understand that they tried, and they did a really good job slowing down Justin Jefferson. I think he only had like 27 yards. But his counterpart had 162. So, and they won in overtime. So, just like the Chiefs, man, they're finding ways to win. I think that there's a different feel with the Vikings and Chiefs because, one, this is unexpected from the Vikings, and two, the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, the Vikings have Sam Darnold. No offense to Sam Darnold, he has been incredible this year, but there's just a different level of there's a different level of expectation when you talk about the Chiefs compared to when you talk about the Vikings, especially going to the season after J.J. McCarthy got hurt. But the Vikings are now 9-2, and their 2 losses, I believe, one was to the Lions, and I don't remember the other one, but they've been playing great. And the Bears have been playing much better. Caleb Williams is playing much better these last 2 weeks, but it obviously doesn't matter because they both lost. And now I think the Bears on a 5-game losing streak. Damn. So, yeah, shouts out to the Vikings for beating the Bears, 30-27. You don't want to believe it, but the evidence is growing. CJ Stroud is in a sophomore slump. There's no question about it at this point. You can say it's because Stephon Diggs isn't there, but at this point that's it. Nico Collins is there, Tank Dell is there, Joe Mixon's there. Yes, the offensive line is god awful, and the defense isn't that good at all. But you shouldn't be losing and being outplayed by Will Levis and the Titans. The Titans beat the Texans 32-27. Now you can point to the missed kick at the end of the game from the Texans, but why are you in a dogfight with the Titans? A Titans team that, if I'm not mistaken, Will Levis gave up a pick 6 in this game. In fact, how many times did he throw a pick in this game? I think he had one interception, one of them being a pick 6. However, CJ Stroud was no better. He threw 2 interceptions and had a quarterback rating of 23. Yikes. Yeah, I think the excuses are starting to. They're starting to lessen. Don't get me wrong. The offensive line is god awful, but when Joe Mixon wasn't there, it was like, yo, they need Joe Mixon there. When Nico Collins wasn't there, it's like, yo, they need Nico Collins there. I think we can start to say, yo, CJ Stroud just isn't playing well. And I could say that and they can go on and beat the Ravens on Christmas, but these losses are starting to not only are you dropping in the standings in the AFC playoff race, but starting to get more and more concerning because you're losing to teams that you shouldn't lose to. I know any given Sunday, but there's starting to be a lot of teams Sunday against the Titans. Yo, they're 7-5. Just saying. And the Titans, well, man, Tony Pollard rushed for 119 yards. Yeah. It's CJ Stroud stepped out of bounds. That's how they got 32. He stepped out of bounds for a safety. He pulled a Dan Orlowski. That's all I'm saying. Shouts out to the Titans for beating the Texans 32-27. You know, the Colts are stuck in the middle. I've said this before. I'm sure multiple people have said this before. The last place you want to be is the middle. Too bad you're not bad enough to have a good draft pick, and you're not good enough to compete for anything in the playoffs. The Lions beat the Colts 24-6. Ironically, Anthony Richardson had a pretty okay game. He didn't have a great game, but he had a pretty okay game. And it didn't matter. There was not a point in time where you thought that they were they got shut out the second half. There was not a point in time where you thought that this game, yes, they went into the second quarter with a 3-0 lead, but there wasn't a point in the time in this game where you thought the Colts were going to win this game. Not a one. I can spit out regurgitated topics or regurgitated facts and regurgitated opinions. They're just stuck in the middle. They're a okay team, but an okay team does nothing for you. They're like the Pacers. You're not good enough to really compete and scare anybody in the playoffs. You're also not bad enough to get a good draft pick, so you're just gonna be in the middle. And when you go up against teams like the Lions, you're gonna lose. I don't think that there's any team where I think if any of the top teams, like I don't see it. They're just not that good. So, shouts out to the Lions for beating the Colts 24-6. Another team that kind of finds So the Seahawks beat the Cardinals 16-6. It's a divisional game. Yo, I watched both of these teams, and I don't think. Yes, we know that the Seahawks can score points. When you have Kenneth Walker III, when you have DK Metcalf, when you have Tyler Lockett, when you have Jackson Smith and Jigba, I'm sorry. You know they can put up points. Geno Smith throwing the ball. But there's too many times and too many games where they just struggle to score points. Yo, the Cardinals did everything in their power to give this game away. And they did. Horrendous interception thrown by Kyler Murray. He just running to the sideline or lofted up past literally right to the opponent. Geno Smith did everything he could to give this game away, throwing a nasty interception in the red zone. It's like there are games where the Seahawks look looks like one of those offensive teams, just like Jesus Christ. Like they're just score. Then there's too many times where you look up and they only have 3 points. They only have 10 points. They only have 16 points. Like, all right. And don't get me wrong, the Cardinals, they're better than I thought they would be. They're right now competing for number 1 in the NFC West. But the Seahawks, I guess this is congratulations to the Seahawks for beating the Cardinals, but still, like too many times I'm looking at this team and it's just like, this is hard to watch. Both of them. This is hard to watch. And there's too much talent on both teams to think that way, but that's where we're at. Shouts out to the Seahawks for beating the Cardinals 16-6. The Dolphins beat the Patriots 34-15. The biggest talking point of this game is when Gerard Mayo, the head coach of the Patriots, came out and said, once they cross the white line, there's nothing I can do for them. There's nothing I can like, what? Look, I'm not saying fire Gerard Mayo. This is first year. And you know your team is bad. You know that the Patriots are a bad team. They're actively trying to get a good draft pick. Drake May is pretty good, and I think that they hit on that draft. Obviously, he looks like the quarterback of the future for this team, but the team as a whole is god awful. There's a video go around of their safety. Their safety gave up so many big plays. Because he was just out of either safety or a corner. He was just out of position every single time. The Patriots suck, bro. Like, they're not a good team. They're a god-awful team. And shouts out to the Dolphins, bro. I still don't trust the Dolphins in cold weather. Tua has a mean losing record in cold weather. Even though Tua did play well, he had 317 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jalen Waddle, 144 yards and a touch. Like, it was great, but you're also playing against a team that is actively trying to be bad. So, and I don't even know. The Dolphins may not even make the playoffs, so I don't know. But we'll see. Shouts out to the Dolphins for beating the Patriots. Yo, another week, another win from the Broncos. Now, albeit it was against the Raiders, they beat them 29-19. But another week where Bo Nix looked really good, threw for 273 yards and 2 touchdowns. It does suck that Gardner Minshew, I think he broke his collarbone, so he's out for the season, which is a huge blow. But it's either Aiden O'Connell now or Desmond Ridder. I mean, either one you're going to lose, so sucks. And the Broncos, yet another win. They're 7-5. They're now tied with the, if I'm not mistaken. No, they're not. But the AFC West is really competitive. At least the top 3 teams, whether let me say this. Nobody's catching the Chiefs, at least in the AFC West. But that competition between the Broncos and Chargers is really heating up. And the Offensive Rookie of the Year race continues to heat up between Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels' recent slump and Bo Nix's elevation is starting to really, really take shape. But congratulations to the Broncos for beating the Raiders 29-19. Yeah, that was week. Was it 13? Week 12. I want to talk a little bit about college football and the chaos that we have seen. This is the dream scenario that I think a neutral college football fan wants. The last thing I think you want is a 1-2 conference dominated college football playoffs. And in certain terms, we probably are going to get that. Like, if you look, the top 12 teams right now, most of them, I say 90% of them is either in the Big Ten or SEC. That's kind of what we talk. That's what we said going into the season. I mean, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, all 3 of those are the Big Ten. Indiana's in the Big Ten. And then on top, you also have Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, all in the SEC. But the weeks go by, and when you look at the slate for what we were going to get, what we got last week, you would think that it was just going to be a regular day. You would think it was just going to be a regular, probably snooze fest, all the favorites win, and it was far from that. Colorado lost to Kansas. Alabama lost to Oklahoma. BYU lost a second straight game. Indiana lost to Ohio State. This is what you want. Ole Miss lost to Florida. You want chaos because you know that while ratings, actually, I think ratings are going to be very high, even because right now, I don't think Alabama is going to make the college football playoffs. At least with the resume that they have, they're not even going to be in the not even going to be in the SEC championship. I don't think they're going to make it. I honestly don't think that Colorado is going to make it because they had their destiny in their hands. They lost that, so it might be Iowa State. I don't know. And Miami, what are they going to do? in the ACC with SMU and Clemson. This is what we want. And it has been incredible. It has been incredible. Now, again, it's still going to be maybe one or two conference-dominated college football playoffs, but we're going to get to see possibly an Iowa State in the college football playoffs, possibly a Tennessee, possibly a Boise State, possibly a SMU now. This is the excitement that you want, getting teams that maybe wouldn't have gotten a shot if Alabama would have won, if Colorado would have won, if BYU would have won. Getting teams like, hell, Tulane has a shot of winning or making to the college football playoffs. South Carolina, even though it is a slim chance, Army and because Army just got destroyed by Notre Dame. So I'm just saying this is what we want. It's been a chaotic year, and obviously once we get to the end of the regular season, I'll talk more in depth about some season winners, some season losers. But right now, us as fans are winners because now the committee might be they don't know what the hell they're gonna do, especially when you look at the Big 12. But I'm excited. I think that this is the best thing that could have happened to the college football playoffs the first year. Chaos, because you just don't want it to be dominated by one or two conferences, which it still would be, but you understand that, some Boise has a shot of being being a wild card. I mean, being a conference champion, so I'm excited. Let me first say, as we move on to our next topic, that we're in November. We are in November. That means all the basketball seasons extremely early. NBA, college basketball, it is November. So I'm sure the Golden State that we're seeing now, we may not see the same Golden State towards the end of the season. North Carolina lost and damn near lost to Dayton the other night. Whoever wins UConn just lost to Memphis. I don't think Memphis is a national champion contender, and they just beat the two. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just November. But I do need to shine light on the fact of we did see South Carolina, the women's, lose. Now, they have not lost. Let me see something. They have not lost a game since 2000 and they haven't lost a road game since like 2021. I think that this is going, as much as people don't like to say it, parity is exciting. Parity is good. Yes, there are a slew of fans that, even though they may not admit it, they do love dominance. They do love watching people dominate. But parity is beautiful. Like in this week, right? We saw South Carolina win. Or lose, I'm sorry. We saw USC lose to Notre Dame with Hannah Hidalgo going crazy. We saw UCLA beat their first number one seed in team history. Like, this is, I think the women's basketball side is going to be. There are so many great teams, so many great stories. Like I said, Hannah Hidalgo could be Player of the Year. Olivia Miles might be. She could like. We're talking about Paige Beckers and UConn. Hell, we just talked about Gina Auriemma breaking the record. They're so. I wouldn't. Juju and USC is still going to be okay. Like, this is going to be a great season, and even in college basketball for the men's, like. Obviously, as I'm recording, I don't know the outcome, but I know that Duke is playing Kansas tonight. North Carolina has to play Auburn tonight, and Auburn just won a nail biter against Iowa State. It's early, and you shouldn't shape how you feel about these teams now, but college basketball is going to be an incredible package this year. And there you can say that there isn't as much talent, at least on the men's side, as there usually is, but I think that there's an overflowing of talent on the women's side, and the men's side, the talent is just dispersed. There's just not everyone going to Duke or North Carolina or Kansas or Kentucky. While those teams are loaded, especially Duke, you see teams like an Auburn. You see teams like an Iowa State. You see teams like a UConn. Hell, Memphis. Like, it's great, man. And I'm excited for the product that's going to be shown. So it needed to be addressed and needed to be talked about that South Carolina did lose, because they ain't lost in God knows how long. They haven't lost in the regular season, I think, like I said, since 2021. But shouts out to UCLA, and I'm excited for this season. It's going to be great. Lastly, before we go, I don't do this often, as much as I would like to, but this is the unpopular topic of the day, and this is a non-sports topic. I had to address GNX. Kendrick, let me first say, not everyone. I understand that when you want to be successful, a lot of things that you have to do is you have to mimic the greats, but find your way to navigate in your own lane. Not everyone can do a surprise drop. I just want, please, all the artists out there, not everyone can do a surprise drop. You have to be on a different level. And Kendrick Lamar drops a surprise album, GNX. For it to have 5 minutes of promo, and the promo that it did have the song wasn't even on the album, which makes you think that he's dropping another album either soon or before or after the Super Bowl. GNX was incredible, man. Out of 12 songs, I will constantly go back to 11 of them. I wasn't a fan, and there's also not knowing Kendrick, I don't know him personally, but when you look at his discography, it seems like he's very intentional with how he structures an album and how the storytelling from track 1 to the last track, it always feels like they're all connected. They're all cohesive. Pretty much every album. This is the first album where it felt like there wasn't really any direction as much as he wanted to do something for the West Coast. This is an incredibly heavy West Coast sounding album, or mixtape, whatever you want to call it. And it was just fun. That's what it was. You don't really, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, you don't go to Kendrick Lamar's catalog for fun. And I'm not saying that he doesn't make good music. What I'm saying is you go there for introspectivity. You go there to hear great music, but you go there to hear a story. You you're going to get incredible attention to detail, which you did get in this album, but when I go to Travis Scott, I go for fun. I don't think I'm going to get a incredibly detailed story throughout an album. While I love his music, I love his catalog, his discography, I don't really go to Travis Scott for, oh man, I need to hear something introspective. I go there for, I need to hear great music. I need to hear something that'll get the blood flowing. You know what I mean? you don't really, when you go to Kendrick, while you do get some songs like that, you go like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I love that album so much, but I look at that album much differently than I look at, let's say, Utopia. Utopia, it's just a different feeling. Both albums I love. Both albums are great, but this album, I would put more in the Utopia side as far as it's just the beats were crazy. The whole mustard, that going around social media right now. He did. And honestly, I said I like 11 out of 12 songs. The one that I don't like is GNX, but that was heavy LA beat and everything. I don't hate it. I just, there's just more songs that I like. He also did have introspective Kendrick on here with Heart Part 6 or Reincarnated, Man in the Garden. It was incredible. This was, not everyone can drop surprise albums, but not everyone can drop albums this great without any heads up. It was so good that I would put it as an album of the year category. And West Coast has been killing it this year, man. From Kendrick and GNX, what's his name? Tyler Creator dropping Chromacopia, Vince Staples dropping Dark Times, Schoolboy Q with Blue Lips, Doechii with Alligator Bites. It's been an incredible year for music. And I don't know if Doechii's from the West Coast, but that's just West Coast / TDE, because I know Doechii is part DDE. That's just West Coast, because I know Kendrick is not TDE anymore. But, man. And I'm not even going to, because I didn't read anything. I'm just going off of what Twitter lawyers are saying. I'm not going to go into detail and give my deep thoughts about Drake suing UMG and essentially Kendrick and Spotify for Not Like Us. I didn't read any proceedings. I'm just going off of Twitter lawyers. So, but I do know this. Oh boy, it is a terrible, terrible look. Like, if there is a poster boy for going out sad right now, a lot of people were saying that J. Cole was going outside. I think that J. Cole can apologize 1,000 times. It would not look as bad as the optics of Drake suing UMG, Spotify, and essentially Kendrick Lamar for Not Like Us. Optics, I don't know the whole story, so I'm not going to get into detail. I'm just saying. And on top of that, it looks much, much worse after this news comes out. After GNX comes out. Just saying. But there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to reach as many subscribers as possible. If you like what you hear, tell a friend, tell a friend, and tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely means a lot. Also, please follow the DSPs, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening to the Unpopular Podcast. I appreciate you guys. Please, please, please follow. Please subscribe. It means so much to me. Also, follow the socials. Follow Instagram. Follow TikTok. I post pretty much daily there. That's where you get stories, reels. If you want to go back and forth with me, just keep it respectful. I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you are passionate about whatever is being discussed and you're listening to me. So I appreciate both. So yeah, follow the socials. Instagram, TikTok, link in the description below. Until next time, actually, for people that do celebrate Thanksgiving, for people that do look at it as a holiday for family, happy holidays. I don't know any black people, and I'm black. I don't know any black people that celebrate Thanksgiving for it being Thanksgiving in the meaning. I just think it is a day where a bunch of families are able to come together and eat. And I hope that if you're able to do that, you enjoy your family. If you're unable to do that, I hope that you enjoy your day, or enjoy the day. Yeah. So until next time, much love.